We have some exclusive CNN reporting today in our world lead. The United Kingdom will no longer share intelligence with the U.S. about suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean, with sources saying that the British do not want to be complicit in these lethal U.S. military strikes against drug trafficking suspects, strikes that the Brits and lots of legal experts believe are against international law. Let's get right to CNN's Natasha Bertrand, who broke the story. Natasha, this is a critical departure from a top U.S. ally.
Yeah, it's the US's closest ally. They have a very long-standing intelligence sharing partnership. And it's important to note some of the context here as well. Prior to the US military beginning its lethal campaign against these suspected drug vessels, the UK was very happy to share intelligence with the US in the Caribbean to try to locate suspected drug traffickers because, of course, the UK controls territory in the Caribbean and they have an interest in controlling the flow of drugs in that area. But when the US military started to bomb the boats rather than just interdict them and arrest everyone on board. Instead, they started killing everyone on board. 76 people to date have been killed in these US strikes. The UK decided to pull back its intelligence sharing, we're told, because they did not want their targeting information to be by the US military to conduct these lethal attacks, which the UK believes are illegal. They believe that they're in violation of international law. Now, the Trump administration has argued that the US military can legally kill suspected traffickers because they pose an imminent threat to Americans and they have designated them as enemy combatants, saying that the US is in an armed conflict with those groups. But crucially, the administration has not provided evidence either publicly or even to lawmakers that these individuals on board these boats are in fact members of these criminal organizations, these cartels. And they've also told lawmakers repeatedly that they don't even know the individual identities of each of these people on the boats before they strike them and kill everyone on board. So this is why the UK and other allies around the world, as well as so many legal experts, are questioning the legality and, frankly, just the wisdom of this U.S. military campaign, Jake.
All right, Natasha Bertrand in Brussels, thanks so much. The Trump administration claims that the U.S. strikes on boats are targeting boats operated by what they call narco-terrorists and cartel members bound for the United States. An Associated Press report finds that for at least 9 of the more than 60 people killed in the strikes, that does not seem to have been the case. In dozens of interviews, quote, residents said the dead men had indeed been running drugs, but were not narco-terrorists or leaders of a cartel or gang, unquote. The report details how the men made up to $500 a trip. Laborers and fishermen, they were low-level career criminals who lived along the poverty-stricken coast of Venezuela. They were people whose families and friends could confirm their deaths only through their absences and by word of mouth. My panel is here, former Director of National Drug Control Policy under President Biden, Dr. Rahul Gupta. Also with us, national security expert Sean McFate. So, Sean, the relatives and residents interviewed in this story are incensed that these people were just killed, not interdicted, not captured, not given any sort of due process. Can you shed some light on how the process, according to international law experts, is supposed to work?
Yeah. So the law of armed conflict, or international humanitarian law, you can only hit armed combatants, which is like a soldier versus a civilian. It distinguishes between a combatant and non-combatant. But we've had this discussion before for the last 25 years about, say, a terrorist. Is a terrorist, they deliberately blur the line between civilian and combatant. And what the Trump administration has done is said, okay, well, we targeted terrorists for the last 25 years. These cartels kill more Americans through fentanyl and opioids than terrorists do. So really, they're the same thing. And that's the question that others like United Kingdom and Canada to some extent have criticized.
So, Dr. Gupta, obviously narcotics are a huge problem in the United States. Lots of innocent people are overdosing, people that take fentanyl and opioids purposefully, but also people that think they're taking like a natural herb pill or something far less dangerous, marijuana even, and that's been laced with fentanyl and they die of the overdose. What do you think about what the Trump administration is doing to combat this horrible situation?
Well, Jake, I think there's a number of issues here. First, 4 out of 5 people that die or overdose and die is because of fentanyl, not cocaine necessarily.
And the fentanyl's coming from China and Mexico, not from South America.
Exactly. So the boats generally have cocaine. Now we get about 2,500 tons of cocaine coming to this country every year, and we try to interdict about 10% of this, and we are not able to match that goal per the Inspector General of the Coast Guard in this administration. Now think about that, 2,500 tons. That means that there is a demand problem also in this country. Now the second issue here is that if we're killing people without any judicial process or accountability, that also means we don't know what's on those boats and who are those people, except for the reports that now we know. I will also say that when we move for not high-level terrorists or high-level cartel leaders, but everyday people who are doing a side hustle, even though it's criminal, to kill them this way, we're denying not only due process, but basic principles that we've stood by, which is accountability, fairness, and the rule of law. And that's what's important.
Sean, sources tell CNN the UK is suspending intelligence having to do with the Caribbean. Do you think it's likely that other U.S. allies who also have territories or relationships in the Caribbean, France, Norway, et cetera, are likely to follow suit?
It's a good question, Jake. So first of all, the United States and United Kingdom are in an intelligence alliance called the Five Eyes.
Five Eyes, yeah.
Right, which includes Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And this move is really more symbolic than an operational constraint, because the U.S. has pretty superb intelligence there, especially since they have like 10% of the Navy fleet docked off the Venezuelan coast. So it's really a symbolic sort of shot across the bow, if you will, to the Americans. And the Canadians they haven't gone that far, but they've voiced publicly they also have reservations about operations there.
Admiral, so grateful to have you to talk about this. How significant is it that the UK, who's a member of Five Eyes, I mean, this is a really important intelligence sharing partner for the United States of America, has basically said, we're not going to give you information about this because we don't think that this is legal?
Assuming the reporting is correct, because nobody's announcing it on either side of the pond. But Casey, if true, it's a big, big deal. Tactically, it means you're not going to get that intelligence that the United Kingdom gathers all around the Caribbean. They still own the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, Montserrat. It's got a lot of territories. They conduct a lot of operations there. So that's a real tactical shortfall. Operationally, this intelligence during my time and today flows through something called the Joint Interagency Task Force South. It's in Key West. It's got over a dozen different countries in it. In effect, the UK is saying, we're not going to participate. That's an operational shortfall. And to me, most worrisome is the strategic question it raises as follows. It's one thing when the United Nations Human Rights Commission says, hey, these are extra-legal, extrajudicial killings. When your closest ally says, nope, we're not going there anymore, that raises real questions about the strategic direction you're going. So bottom line, it's a big deal.
Admiral, can you help us understand how you think about the strategy here and how outside the norms it is or isn't?
If you mean, and I think you do, the counter-narcotics policy, it's quite outside the norms of the way we've done business in the past. When I commanded Southern Command, if we had very good intelligence about a high-speed boat moving, we would typically lay in wait for it, put a helicopter over it so that it couldn't run away, have the Coast Guard come up, maybe shoot out the engines if we had to, then would apprehend the bad guys, incarcerate them, interrogate them. That's, in my view, a pretty good system, because leaving aside the pure legalities or the moral and ethical questions, which are important, but by simply blowing up boat after boat, you don't have the opportunity to gather intelligence by interrogation. You can't make the case that Maduro is behind all of this because you've killed all the perps and you've blown up all the evidence.